As soon as I got off, I texted Peyton. I said, I don't care how much it costs. I said, I want it. I said, what do we need to do?
That's called taking risk, and biblically that's called faith. A lot of people live in fear, but what if it fails? The minute you decide that you're good enough, you are aging out.
But now it's not thinking bigger, because I know I can't change the world playing small.
You can try to figure it out on your own.
And the outcome of Saddlebrook, not just about the success, but what you're doing for your team.
Guys, I'm excited for this next conversation we're about to have with Larry and Stacy, all the way from Russ, Texas. I'm super excited because we've been getting coached for the last 3 years by them of what the importance is of having scaffolding around you. So Larry and Stacy, tell us a little bit of how Fueled by Fire became and how y'all started it, and a little bit of background.
Well, you want to start?
You go ahead.
Okay. Well, one of the things that we're so excited about is in our background, we've been able to raise up companies into the hundreds of millions and build sales teams into the hundreds of thousands of people. And we got to a place in our life where the success, money only makes you more of what you are. And we knew that we wanted to do more than just keep making money, build bigger houses, get more cars, and actually invest in the next generation of leaders. And so we went through some extreme life changes in our own life. Gave all our money away to the poor. And that was because I woke up and had a dream one day and felt like that's what we were supposed to do. And in that season, we realized that there's a life beyond money. And that was making a difference. So we moved from success to really wanting to pursue significance. And we birthed Fueled by Fire in 2021 after 35 years of business development success. And in that process, we've been blessed to have clients from around the world where we help them scale their big God-sized vision and do it on a kingdom basis. We call that, it's a faith-based model where we help raise up not only companies into the millions and the tens of millions, hundreds of millions, but also show them how to do it the kingdom way.
Going back to you saying how Fueled by Fire started, give me a little context on why you started Fueled by Fire. What was the reason behind why you started it? I mean, everybody has when you start a business or you start something, you have a purpose behind what the impact that you want to make, or the purpose. What would you say was that, like, what got you started in that?
Well, we've been doing business for a long time. Larry has been COO of some very large corporations, and me as well, CEO, and I've been senior vice president for companies. Doing business, we're not the young CEO entrepreneur anymore. We're the ma and pa of young CEOs, and we love that. But what got us started is we just had a heart that we build something that outlives us, not a company, but a message. And we wanted to have impact through leaders like you guys that are coming up and saying, man, I want to build a multi-million-dollar company, but I also want to be a great dad. I also want to be a great husband. So we knew that we had built a life. We owe no man anything but to love him. We're debt-free, houses paid for, cars paid for. We live extravagantly according to, we're very faith-based. So there's a scripture that says, owe no man anything but to love him and be the lender and not the borrower. It's not really what people teach today. And we wanted to raise up a generation of CEOs, both young and old, who would be able to have debt-free companies, who would be able to raise up teams that did more than just make sales, but actually made leaders. And so for us, Fueled by Fire became the culmination of that, of being able to create an international coaching and consulting firm that allows us to help create, help to innovate, help people see and clarify their God vision.
You have a topic that you talk about that's made, or it's peace and profits. How does that come into all, how you have different topics that we've been getting coached, or me and Colton have been getting mentorship, and, we talk about scaffolding, we talk about the people around, we had to get in other rooms. We knew that we had to up level. Back when, you were driving along the road, you seen one of our tiny homes, and then, you got connected with Colton.
Well, let's tell that story, because that's
I'll let Colton tell that story.
That's a pretty cool story.
Like, how do we go go from this like random connection to 3 years later, you guys have become this massive multi-million-dollar business. You're like in your 20s, and there's got to be people looking at you going, how did that happen? It didn't just happen overnight. You guys have done the hard work. From putting SOPs in place to putting job descriptions in place to hiring and firing and going through that. You know, when you take multiple growth leaps in your business, what was your highest level of capacity 3 years ago? Today is totally different.
3 years ago, I didn't even know even what a KPI was. Number one.
Or even what CEO stood for.
And so, I still remember I believe it was on a Friday or Saturday when one of the dealers that we had at the time, which they're not even no longer with us, and they called in, you actually stopped.
What happened was we were driving through this really small town or city, and I believe Stacy and I were actually talking while we were driving. So we were pulling a fifth wheel.
Yeah, a very
Yeah.
long.
I had a dually and a 42-foot long fifth wheel, and that's really important information because I'm getting ready to tell you why. But so we're driving through, and Stacy and I were talking about, we have a piece of property, and we were thinking about what we were going to put on the property, and so we had talked about tiny homes. And so as we were driving through this really small town or city, Texas, we drive through, and Stacy looks over to our left, and she sees this lot that has all these little tiny homes on there.
And storage buildings.
Yeah, in storage buildings. And she says, "Stop!" I'm like, I just can't stop.
20,000 pounds of cargo.
It's the fifth wheel.
Yeah.
And it's like a 2-lane road in the city. And she's like, well, we need to go back. And so I literally had to drive like a mile down the road in order to be able to turn the whole thing around and come all the way back. And
we had a dog in the truck with us, so he had to sit in the truck while I ran in. And I talked to the dealer, and I said, what's the difference between all of these? And that dealer, who was representing all different kinds of tiny homes, said, let me just be honest with you, there's only one company I would encourage you to go with. And they said they're young, but their craftsmanship is at a whole nother level, the excellence and the quality. And so that kind of started the journey, because she said, I'm going to encourage you just to call the guys that run it. It's these two brothers and their family, and here's their phone number.
She talked herself out of the sale.
Kind of did.
Kind of did.
But that's how we ended up connecting, because I called you and you answered, which was
It was late.
It was late.
Because I remember there was nobody left at the office but me. But I still answered.
You answered, and what was great is what still makes you great today is there was a personal approach to how you connected with me that day, asking the questions. I had a need because we have a nonprofit organization where
Right.
we help women and girls, and we knew that we had some homes that we wanted to put people in, and but we didn't know what those homes were going to look like, and we connected because I talked about being a motivational speaker and traveling with Zig Ziglar for 12 years, and you were like, I love Zig Ziglar. And you said, I need a Zig Ziglar in my life. And that started the journey. Now we've got 4 of your tiny homes that are changing people's lives. But now we've gone 3 years of having a coaching relationship where you guys went from, thinking back then that you guys might be going through bankruptcy. You had this incredible vision started. So all of a sudden in 9 months, y'all were doing 13 million. And now look at you, like the growth and the trajectory. I know this is a podcast asking us about us, but you are what we do. Saddlebrook is what we do. And the outcome of Saddlebrook, not just about the success, but what you're doing for your team. Like when we've come to your offices here and we have the opportunity to see your guys and the ladies that work here, that they're not just here to sell houses. They're here because of the culture, because of the core values. Because when you walk into Saddlebrook and you see on the walls those core values listed out, that's why Larry and I do what we do, to see you succeed and to see people like you succeed. And to carry the message of the kingdom while you do it.
Going back to when I first met, I was I was the everything. Kyler had, first built the first 10 by or 12 by 16, I believe. And, after a while, he was just done. Because it was such a mess. We didn't, we had one or two builders, and really didn't know what we were doing. We knew what a 2x4 was, but that was it. And we didn't know any business leadership skills. We didn't know how to hire people, how to fire people. The first employee that we hired probably should have been fired the next day. But I still remember, 2020 when the first conversation happened. The only thing I remember, I was so frustrated because it was, I believe, a Saturday night at 6:00, and I was still there by myself running the business, and I was doing sales, I was doing production, I was the production manager. If there was a 2x4 that had to be bought, that was me. If the marketing if we needed to have leads the next day or the next week, that was me. If the website needed to be done, that was me. And the marketing thing was a whole nother level to talk about of what we've learned. But I think I was just so frustrated and so done with it. I said to myself, I have to have something to help, or if we can't survive like this. And the whole background of 2020 really was a hard year for our family, since my dad, 2020 happened. He had, I think, close to 15,000 head of cattle, and he was losing 200,000 a day every day. And so seeing him go through that, while me and Kyler are trying to, be positive over here, we weren't making a profit either. And we were trying to build something that we had no idea how to build. Even, we knew we were building sheds and tiny homes. That was it.
We knew how to work. We knew how to show up and, put in the hard work, 16-hour days. We knew how to do that.
But the very first conversation, I said, I don't want to sell you a tiny home. I said, I want your coaching.
That's exactly what you said. I remember.
And you were like, well, it's not even set up yet. I'm like, well, and? You can coach me first. And you just kept saying, there's something bigger going to happen here with you guys. I just see something bigger. 2 weeks later, I came out to Rusk, Texas, to the ranch, Epiphany Ranch, which is, there was an RV. We had a turf that overlooked the valley. There was
any buildings.
There was no lake there, but it was all vision.
No fence and no pavement.
And that was the beginning of it. I mean, it took 6 more months for me to sell a tiny home to you.
Yeah.
I tried my best.
You should ask Larry how he got me to marry him. It took a while.
A lot longer than 6 months.
But the very first day Platinum came open,
Peyton called.
Peyton had texted me. He said, hey, I think you need to jump on this Zoom call they're doing, because I was in every Zoom call that you were doing. And I think Peyton was secretly just sending me the links, because just getting me in the back.
Oh, is that how that worked out?
And he said, I think they have something new this month. I think you need to jump on the Zoom call. And it was about launching the Platinum program, which is now a huge thing in Fueled by Fire. And as soon as I got off, I texted Peyton. I said, I don't care how much it costs. I said, I want it. I said, what do we need to do?
But that right there, for young CEOs and the CEO mindset, that's called taking risk. Mm-hmm. And biblically, that's called faith. A lot of people live in fear, but what if it fails? What if I don't get ROI? What if they don't help me go to the next level? And one of the things that you guys learn to do is, what if you change your what ifs? What if it does work? What if they do help you? What if this is your moment? What if this is your time? And so you guys leaning into a faith-based vision of your future changed everything. You guys were stepping in, because Platinum is one of our programs where it's an extreme investment. We're a high-ticket program. We're not a low-ticket program, because we get involved in your company. But for you guys, you were at that stage, what we call growth stage number 1 and number 2, which means that, number 1 is it's just you're the one doing all the work. You don't even have employees. Y'all were already at 2 because you had employees, people helping you build. But when you're at level 2, it's chaotic, because you're still having to do everything. You're having to approve everything. you're working sun up to sundown, and a lot of entrepreneurs or CEOs, they never get out of level 2. Level 3 is when you're starting to develop your SOPs, your job descriptions, you're building teams because you know, I don't want to do this forever. And that's where you are at. You are like, I don't want to do all this. This is too much work. I need help. So your team started to grow and y'all moved into level 3, started creating SOPs and really watching your P&L statement and moving out of just looking at revenue and saying, hey, wait a minute, we're making a lot of revenue, but we're not making profit. When you move into level 3, you realize I've got to create leaders who create leaders so that I can become a team managed company. And the goal then is to get where you guys are now is moving into level 4, which is, you know what? Whether or not we show up, our team is still operating with efficiency. They're still doing what they're trained to do. When you get into 4, you can actually go away for a vacation. You can actually start to scale back how many hours you work every single week, and maybe you go to a 3-day work week. And you guys right now, knowing where you're at, the goal, I'm sure, is that you're able to raise up a team that is self-sufficient. And ultimately, when you get to level 5, that means that you can go and you can create other companies. Now, since that, what's incredible, you went from 1 company, now you have 4 multi-million-dollar companies that have spurred out of that, not to mention the other investments that you've got. I feel like I want to interview you. Because right now I want to say, because I mean, I love that you guys are interviewing us, but really, the story is what God is doing in your life. Like, you started off making sheds and buildings, but what's your dream now? Is it bigger than buildings?
It's bigger than, it's bigger, making an impact. I mean, we were out there just a little bit ago this morning and, you know, seeing that now we're building homes, we're giving jobs, and, you know, it's the families that you're feeding, and just, it's an impact that you're making, you know, it's, you know, going back to that moment when you're building that shed, you're not thinking of I was trying to think about that first shed. How do I get that thing out? How do I get it delivered? How do I, make the customer happy? But now it's not thinking bigger, because I know I can't change the world playing small.
Yeah.
And it's like, you've given me a new perspective of just watching those guys. They're the hammers are going, the people are going back and forth, the forklifts are going, it's loud back there. But we're giving them a reason, they're showing up, they're showing up with a smile and they're happy, and they get to take a paycheck home. They get to, now we get to make a difference.
I love when we were walking back in this facility. How many square feet is this facility?
The back alone is 56,000 square feet.
Just where the work is being done, let alone the offices and your other facility. But how you guys have expanded, and I love when we were walking back there and I said, guys, this started with a shed. Mm-hmm. And just a young guy wanting to make a little extra money. And I said, look at this. Look how many people are working for this company. And in Scripture, when they counted numbers, like Jesus fed 5,000, plus women and children. And I was like, look at all these guys. And you got women that work here as well. But there's a lot of men back there. It's like they represent not just that guy that's using that gun to build, or the person that's laying the floors, or the guy that we saw that was painting inside. I mean, you've got people all over. It's not just them, but it's their wife and their children, that here you guys are in your early 20s changing the world. And maybe it doesn't look like, we're changing Africa and Zimbabwe. You're changing their world.
Yeah.
You're putting food on their table because you get up as a young CEO every day and you do the hard work to create multi-million-dollar success that creates an impact.
And creating a culture and a place to work where people want to come every day. Mm-hmm. Not too many people can do that. There's lots of businesses out there where the employees dread going to work every day. But to see your employees have a smile on their face and the culture that you guys have built over the past couple of years, has been truly amazing.
Yeah, because I remember working before working for other people and working at jobs.
It was terrible. And
just the culture and the hours, and just, you're like another number, like you're just another worker, and you're not really doing anything. You're working the 9 to 5, but it felt, before I started that, I was stuck, right? And I told you this before that. It's, you're looking for your way out. Yeah. And little did I know that was my way out back then, but I just kept on like going and going, kept on showing up, even if it wasn't, it didn't seem like it was working out. And that's just before we met y'all. We had, we went to different events and different coaching platforms that we invested in, because we were like, well, this is the one. This is going to get us out. Little did we know we needed the right people and the right scaffolding around us to help us build the SOPs, the job descriptions. And like when you came in, we were way overpaying. We didn't know, right? 8th and 7th grade dropouts. How do you know how to start or how to pay someone, or how to treat, how to build a culture, how to build SOPs, how to read a P&L? You don't know. But we started our journey started with personal development. Is we knew that we had to get out from just the daily grind of just to go. It was starting to just wear out. Like there's times where we had arguments, and back in the good old days, they say, the F-bombs were flying. That young 19 and 20-year-old or whatever it was. It was. We had to do what we had to do, but it was, that it came to a point where we were sick and tired of being where we're at. Yeah. And then when we started getting around you guys, and he can talk on this too, is the language, the kingdom way. You talk about the kingdom way, and I want to get in that topic later on before we end this podcast. But we started listening to this new language that I've never heard before. Me and him grew up in church. We grew up in going to church every Sunday. We grew up with good parents, but we didn't really understand the language. We didn't really understand the importance behind how to create a legacy and how to bring that in the workplace. And that's what changed, the way that y'all coach, the way you mentor. You're not just a coach, you're a coach and you're G-mama. So there's two different things. But that's what it has impacted my life. I went from a 18-year-old, $250 a week, not knowing what was going to be next. And I know there's, if you're out there, if you're feeling stuck, because I know that you get to that point where you're working just 16-hour days, and you're like, what's next? I'm chasing the money. I was chasing the money. Yeah. But little did I know that was going to turn into burnout, and I'm like, I thought I wanted this. I thought I wanted the $1 million business. But now I got it, and I'm still unhappy. I'm still not fulfilled. I want you to talk a little bit on what does the kingdom way mean, and what is it? How, like a business owner or an entrepreneur they maybe started the business, but now they feel stuck again. They don't feel fulfilled. How do you build a kingdom business? How do you?
I think it's interesting, because I go back and I remember when you were in that place. High ego. 3 years ago, you said to me, what do I need to do to be better? I said, you need to drop the ego, because the ego is going to get you in trouble. And it's going to get you into a place where you're going to find that you're chasing money. There would be times that you guys would come, and you'd come off of an event, and y'all would be like, what's most important? Sell. Or money. And we knew that we just had to let you run. It's kind of like, I do a lot of, you say G-Mama, I have a dream to have a show one day, Fishing with G-Mama. And we fish all kinds of fish. You've got trout, we've got a big bass lake, but we also fish big game fish, marlin and sailfish and tuna. When you are going after a marlin, once you get a marlin on, there's something called back down. You gotta let the marlin run, but you can't let any slack be in the line. You gotta keep that line tight. And as you back down, you're reeling, right? We knew we had to let you guys run. You're going to run through some ego. You're going to run through some mistakes. You're going to run through thinking you know the way. But because we loved you guys, we love our clients, we feel called to our clients. We believe that God has raised us up with success so that we could bring this kingdom mindset, even when you are resisting it. And there were times when you guys, I don't want to hear that anymore. I don't want to talk that way. But I remember when we took you guys on your platinum trip to Mexico, your first one. I'll never forget the sunset at that restaurant when you looked and you said, I said, are you ready for change? And you said, I'm ready for change. And suddenly you begin to not live just for yourself. And that's not like an overnight success. That's a journey you will do for the rest of your life. And especially if you're a young CEO, you're going to have women, you're going to have money, you're going to have a scale of your business. You're going to have 1,000,001, what we call tree of good and evil. Adam and Eve only had one. This generation of young entrepreneurs and young CEOs, it's everywhere. It's on every time you open up your phone to social media. And being able to get to a place to say, I'm tired of the rhetoric. I'm tired of what has become normal to my generation. I want to be different. And when you guys made that decision, remember when you came out to Epiphany Ranch, y'all were in Miracle Mountain Cabin, and I said, what's going to be the culture values of this company? Because when you say, what does it mean to be a kingdom way company, it means that you have a kingdom culture, you have a kingdom character. What other people do, you don't do. You go out in the world and people are dropping the F-bomb and they're acting a certain way, and it's like, that's okay, that's one way you can do it. Don't judge them, that's where they're at. But is that the culture you want to have in your company? Because what you do in moderation, your team will do in excess. Mm-hmm. What you do in moderation, when y'all have kids, your children will do in excess. So as a kingdom leader or a king in your little K kingdom, you got to think about, am I feeding the people what they need to have, or am I operating in my ego for what pleases me? And I'll never forget that day that you guys put Christ-centered as your number one core value. And I remember Peyton was there. He's like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah, he was like, "I don't think so."
Yeah.
All of y'all were going through an ego season, and he was like, "Listen, I grew up with them. I know what that means. That means they're going to hold you highly accountable."
Yeah.
And I am so proud to say, when adult 50, 60-year-old people come into this place to buy tiny homes, they look at that and they say, what does that mean to you? And you guys are able to really define what it means to be Christ-centered, what it means to be a kingdom company. I walked in today and Jehovah Jireh was playing on the radio. You're setting a new standard, and what you're going to be doing is creating a new type of people. I believe your people, Chris and Zeke and Jared and all of the guys that are inside, y'all have so many people that work here now. You're raising up the voice of a new generation.
Yeah.
I think what with me growing up, like there's so many coaches out there now, and I still remember Kyler. After I was, he didn't really know anything because he would be gone Monday through Saturday, delivering these buildings, even though he didn't, he for like 3 years. Hopefully this does not come back to haunt Kyler. But like he would deliver these tiny homes and sheds
Trying to jinx me
without
now.
a CD without a CDL. And so he was always on the road. Like he didn't want anything to do with the day-to-day. He was like, you just handle everything. I don't want anything to do with it. And so I remember calling, or I think we'd call every day. He'd call me saying how things are going, whatever. And I was telling him about you guys. I wanted to invest. He was like, they're just like everything else. It's not going to be worth it. My dad said the same thing. You're spending that. You're crazy. We don't want to, we don't need that.
Let's just be clear so that people understand. It was $100,000 investment to buy
that we did not have.
That you did not have. Thought you were going through bankruptcy, but you knew you had tried a lot of other things, and if you didn't get help, you were going to lose it. We have so many people that come and they've tried so many therapies and coaches and trying to come off addictions and great at making money but horrible at doing life. And they've tried all things, but the difference is when you find the right thing, change takes place. Transformation takes place. And you were in that place where we've tried a lot of things and people were judging you. This is just another one of those.
I still remember we had moved out, me and Kyler, and we went to eat at my parents' house, and they were like, it's going to wear off. Like, they'll be back to normal in 2 weeks. And what had happened, which is a God thing, is my dad coming after the depression happened in 2020 with him, he then went and said, okay, well, they're doing it.
He's seen
we're
the change.
We're very competitive in our family. Yeah. And he was like, well, if they're changing, that means I have to change as well. And I still believe that with me and Kyler making that decision for our family, got him to where he said, okay, I'm wanting to be a better dad to these guys now. Like, they're pushing me to be better. And, you know, he went through the Rise Up Kings, another great program that, you know, that he's been a part of. But talk about the importance of, like, how important is it? Doesn't matter if you're, you know, I was 20 is when I first said, I'm not going to be like another 20-year-old. I have so much to prove. And I had a lot of ego then as well. I think anybody does. Talk about what's the importance of having, we talk a lot about scaffolding. We talk a lot about the right coaches. We talk about the right people at the right seat. So what I'm asking you is, how important is a coach in your life? How important was it? Like, I'm sure you had plenty of coaches in your life as well, and it's changed my life. And I'm only 23, and I'm sitting here talking about coaching. You know, I had another guy in here the other day, and he was like, "Well, I want to coach," but that's a very vague statement because, okay, what do you want to be better at? Because when I looked at you guys, and I was like, okay, I said I wanted to be a speaker one day. Well, she's traveling with Zig Ziglar for 15 plus years. Check the box. One of their companies went into a $1.3 billion exit cap, which was my number one reason at the time of saying we have to change something in our business. And that's why we went with Fueled by Fire. They checked that box. And then what we didn't even know was the kingdom aspect and the family aspect. And I still remember you at our first ever offsite. You were like, you know, some people are here for a season, some people are here for a reason, and some people are here for a lifetime. That changed my life, because I took that to heart and said, these are actually people that no matter for the next, I'm going to be doing life with these for the next 50, 60, 70, 80 years. And so
That will make me 145.
well, you're talking about we're very close with,
Our
Alexia
kids,
and
for
Peyton.
sure.
Yeah, it's
You
a
know-
lifetime relationship.
The need for coaching, the need for scaffolding is super important. And you can go through life trying to figure things out on your own. And, we have a saying in our family, you can either learn by revelation or you can learn by situation. And learning by situation is a lot more painful than learning by revelation. So what I mean by that is, like, situation is like when you do something and you're making the decision on your own, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. When it doesn't work out, it's painful. But then learning by revelation is learning from someone else. And so, but that's what coaching's all about. Stacy and I have had coaches in some aspect or another our entire life, whether it's
We're athletes, so we grew up with
coaches in sports, which had a tremendous influence on both of us, as well as people in our lives that cared about us enough to help us navigate difficult situations. And that could have been in many different forms. It could have been like, it's like Stacy's father was a tremendous coach for her and, later on, whenever we got married, for me too. But we've had people in the business world that have been influences and coaches for us.
Especially through our 30s, going through our 20s and our 30s. Like, I started in business when I was 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And at 18 years old, I'm already running multiple companies. That's not because I was that smart. It's because I surrounded myself by people who, today there's a big talk about OPM, other people's money, right? And everybody's like, oh, you got to really learn how to tap into OPM, other people's money. I believe kings don't borrow, they distribute. So I don't want other people's money. I want to own everything that I have, because I believe everything that I own is the Father's. Because we don't own anything. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So the most important thing is, how do you get to where you can have the wisdom of other people? OPW, other people's wisdom. That's coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So when you can tap into somebody else who's gone before you, who's created the success you want to have, has the family you want to emulate, that's where you hitch your boat right up to that truck and you say, you know what? I want to go where you're going because I want the wisdom that you've already got. Now it's called time expansion. Right? So you get 24 hours, He has 24 hours. I have 24 hours. We come together in a think tank, and it's not just coaching is just telling you what to do. It's actually consulting and saying, what are we going to call the podcast?
We
What do
spent 30 minutes
back-
doing that right before this show started.
What's the background to look like? What are you doing? It's a think tank. It's OPW, other people's wisdom. Now you've got 24. We've got collective time expansion because we all care about the same thing. And that's making a difference in the lives of young CEOs.
Yeah.
So, people my age, and I hear this a lot. Like, I think we want the microwave society. Like, we want it now. Like if I invest today, I want it tomorrow. Talk about so investing in coaching. What I first thought was coaching was, if I invest today, I'll get it tomorrow. But what coaching is, it's spread over a lifetime of return. Talk about why people invest, number one, but the other people that don't, because they're like, well, I didn't see a result because of.
Well, a lot of people, they don't know if they're going to see a result, right? And that's the reason why they don't invest in coaching, is because they're like, well, I can just figure it out myself. It's not worth it. Like, it's too much money or whatever. And quite frankly, that was me at one point. We had a friend of ours that said, hey, I feel like you guys could really benefit from my coach. Like, he had a coach, and he knew where we were wanting to go, and he knew that what we were
This
trying
was
to
back
do.
in 2016, I think it was.
It was before that. It was before
About
that.
15?
14, I think.
Was it 14?
Yeah.
So 2014, it was Garrett White.
Yeah.
And Garrett
Wow.
White had come through a season with us where he had been a part of one of our companies on our team, and he went through a really devastating season of his life. Ended up sleeping on our couch one time. He was going through some tough stuff. And if anybody knows Garrett White now, he's crushing it, right?
Yeah.
But back in that season, we were there for him. And then all of a sudden, he starts kicking it, and he's like, you guys need my coach.
Yeah.
Right?
And so he introduced us to his coach. And so his coach, I think at that time, was down in Austin. He drove up to where we were living in Texas. And he came and met with us. And I'm telling you, it was probably one of the most impactful days that I've ever spent with an individual.
Our mind went,
Yeah, just totally mind expansion. And so when we got to the place where he was talking about how much it would cost in order to work with him, I told Stacy after he left, I waited till he left. I was like, are you kidding me? That's a lot of money. And I told Stacy, I said, I feel like we're on the right track. I don't know if now.
we can do that ourselves, is what you said.
That's exactly what I said. I said, I think we can figure it out. I think we can do it ourselves.
And that's what a lot of people do, is they think, I just
That
need
was
to get
dumb.
something out of them, and then I'll do it myself. The wisdom that you had, even when your brother and your dad didn't totally get it, was you figured out that we can't do it ourselves. And you came in teachable, you came in palatable, and like a sponge.
So our story is a number of years passed by, and then we decided that she decided that I'm not going to listen to him anymore. and we ended up hiring a coach, and they took us down a path.
A very high ticket coach.
Yeah, very
because
high
we
ticket.
realized we had already had a lot of success,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't need somebody just to pat us on the back or tell us that we're doing. We needed somebody that was going to kick the tar out of us, that was
Yeah.
going to look and say, here's what you've done, it's good, but here's where you've never been, let's go.
And what you're missing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we were so close, but we were missing some key elements. And I find that that's a lot of people, they're close. They look at other people and they say, okay, I can model that, but they don't know the 2 or 3 little nuances that they need to fix in order to be spot on. And we have clients that come through and they say, hey, can we just model what you're doing? We're like, absolutely. And then we'll do like a client call with them, and because they want to show us what they've done. And it's like, they didn't do it exactly like we said to do it, but they're expecting the same results. And I was like, no, you're not doing the recipe. You have to do the recipe.
And success is a recipe. There's
Yeah.
some things that you've got to do over and over and over again. And the recipe, it's like Debbie Fields. I don't know if y'all have ever had Debbie Fields cookies. So I had the privilege of traveling when we were traveling on all the big stages. She was one of the speakers, and I'm sitting backstage with her, and I'm like, what's the secret? Because when you walk through an airport and you smell Debbie Fields cookies. It's like, she sat back there and she said, you know, it's the craziest thing. It's the butter. She said, it's just the butter. She said, people change the butter. She said, they can do exactly what I do if they would just use the same butter that I use. And she said, and then of course, branding. We did a really good job of branding our company. It's that crazy is that people think I can just do it myself. But what coaching does is it gets you in the pocket with somebody who's doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah. So for us, once we made the decision to invest in our own coach, it's exactly what we needed. And so the thing is that you can try to figure it out on your own. You may get lucky and get it right the first time, but most people don't. And so it's so much better to hire a coach, find a mentor, get with somebody who's been there, done that, and then follow the recipe of success.
And you'll do that for the rest of your life. Like the day I stop having coaching, I need to stop coaching.
We have coaches now.
Because it means that you've hit your peak and you're not growing. If you're not growing, you're dying. The other day I saw Mark Zuckerberg, they were talking about who surrounds him. I mean, that's somebody that's running a massive company, and you'd think, oh, surely he can just sit back and relax. Never. The minute you decide that you're good enough, you are aging out.
Yeah.
And so even though you guys are young, the minute you stop having, when we talk about scaffolding, we're talking about building skyscrapers. And the bigger a company goes up, the tighter the scaffolding you need around it. And so that's what it is when we met you guys. I'll never forget the red truck and the sunglasses and the really nice starched shirt that he got when he walked out. I was like, he's slick, he's good. But in my heart and in my spirit, I felt like God say, this is bigger than he even knows. And I'm going to not just be behind him to build a company, but I'll use him as a voice of a generation.
And it's also surrounding yourself with people that are doing things that you aspire to do, right? And a lot of younger adults hang out with young adults who haven't done anything yet. And that's one of the things that when you guys are spending time with your coaches, with us, with people, other business owners, bankers, lawyers, and all the people that you guys do business with, you have different conversations. And you're going to think differently. You're going to make different decisions. And the important thing is just getting in the room with other people who are going or have gone places where you want to go.
Yeah, it goes even back to 30, 45 days ago, we were sitting in Mexico, and we were just dreaming of having a finance company. And the only thing that you said is, okay, go talk to 20 bankers and go for the 20 no's. And it's not the N-O, it's the K-N-O-W. It's, okay, what do you take out of every conversation and apply it to the next conversation with the next banker? And we're sitting now, July 17th or 18th, and by July 22nd, I'll have a finance company put together.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing though, is like before that even happened, you were in our coaching calls, you were talking about some of the problems that you guys were trying to overcome.
We don't have financing.
Financing was a big issue. And then
for years.
And then I said, why don't you guys start your own financing company? And it was like at that point, you're like, I'm not going to run a bank. I can't start a bank. And you were thinking about all the different ways that it couldn't happen. But the thing is that it can happen. And so you started to open up your mind to the fact of the possibilities versus not how it couldn't happen, but how could it happen? And then you start talking to the 20 banks, getting the 20 no's, K-N-O-W's, and then now look at you.
Look at everything you've learned.
And just in retrospect, in our field, which is modular homes and tiny homes, the financing world is not caught up to it yet. And so I found out, to my knowledge, there's only 2 banks right now that have taken the risk and have created a model around what we do here. And guess what those K-N-O-W's got me? Is it got me in the right rooms, and then I was talking to guys that were worth $500, $600 million that owned and had access to these banks. There's 2 banks. Right. America's a big country, but to get to the level of even talking to those bankers takes a lot of KNOWs.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though, is like you're going to help solve a problem that so many other people have. And you guys are in your 20s. Y'all are solving problems that people in their 50s and 60s and 70s haven't been able to solve yet. That's amazing.
When you think about young CEOs, they're going to go through a lot of no's. And I remember sitting in Mexico with you, and there was, you had been trying. And I said, listen, I got people right now I can put you in front of, but you're not ready. You need a little bit more KNOW. That day I told you go get 20 no's, and you were thinking, I'm going to get 20 rejections. Every rejection, you either win or you learn. And that's the power of the KNOW. And I think that all the listeners that you have for this podcast, that they got to remember, you might have a no today, an NO today. Step back and do the PRAY, pause, reflect. Ask yourself some questions. Ask God, what was I supposed to learn out of that NO? And then whatever he tells you, yield to it. If he says, you know what, you went in with too big of an ego. Yes, sir. If he says, you know what, that wasn't the one, I've got a better one for you. Yes, sir. And when you start to apply these principles, not only to your business, but to your life, your KNOW now becomes a wealth of information that you can have your own podcast and you can share with the world.
I think a big key to what you were just saying is that a lot of people have fear of the no.
Yeah.
And fear of the rejection.
Yeah, don't fear the rejection, because even if there is rejection, it's not terminal. Like it's not the end.
It's only the end if you quit.
It's only the end if you quit. So what if someone says NO? You're still going to learn something. You're going to know, you're going to have a different perspective. You're going to learn something that you can apply next time.
Yeah.
And all you're going to do is just continue to get stronger. And so for anybody who's watching or listening, don't fear the rejection, because at the end of the day, you're just going to continue to get better and better and better.
And never burn the bridge.
Yeah.
I said, they might say no to you, NO to you today,
Yeah.
because you're 23, they don't trust you, they don't know if you're going to really be good with their money. Don't burn the bridge, because one day they'll be begging you for you to be a part of your investment. If you stay humble, if you stay kind, stay diligent, and do what God's called you to do, in the future you will have no problem, because the KNOW that you're learning is going to be the path. You're going to both of you are going to cut through mountains that will become highways for other CEOs who are young like you, who say, someday I want to have my own company. Someday I want to break out of my own biases and my own fear and my own rejection. And I want to be something more than I am. That's why it's worth investing in the KNOW.
I go back to that connection that was made, a year and a half ago? That you met the person that we started it now with, and the financing company and all that. That connection that you made a year and a half ago, or was it 2 years ago?
Probably close to 2.
We got a no then. And we said, hey, I don't think we have anything to work with. Just because you're getting a no doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to work with them in the future. You're just not ready.
Yeah, it's just not yet.
Right. It's just not yet. And just going back to that, we made that connection 2 years ago, and now you're picking up the phone. You didn't burn no bridge just because they said no. They said NO. We don't have anything. Didn't mean that relationship was broken. Now you go back 2 years later, you call her up and say, what do you think about this? Because you're a totally different leader. You're a totally different position. You've built the business. You've got the SOPs. God took you through a season of a lot of no's, but then those turned into KNOWs. Yeah. We went through a season of everything, nothing working. So good. And then all of a sudden, when God gives you opportunities, and he puts you through the season. If you're not ready for that opportunity, he's going to get you prepared before that opportunity comes.
But the key was y'all never quit.
Yeah.
So it didn't necessarily feel good.
I wanted to.
I know you wanted to, but you didn't, right? And it didn't feel good at days, because there was days where it felt like you said, nothing was working. But the thing is that you guys kept trying something new.
Yep.
And you kept your options open, and you stayed humble. And I think that's another big key, is staying humble, even when you have success.
Yeah.
like this connection that you guys had over 2 years ago, because of your humility and because of the respectfulness that you guys, the Southern hospitality, you guys staying humble, people are going to remember that, right? Because people are going to remember how you make them feel. And so if you made them feel good, even though it wasn't the right time, when it is the right time, they're going to remember, wow, I really like those guys, and I really want to work with them now. You know, now that we figured it out. So staying humble is a really big key.
And I think it's just keep going. I mean, there was times I would text Larry and I'm like, I think it's just time to hire somebody else to replace me. And he said, no, Colton, you know, just keep at it. And that month specifically, we had lost, you know, $350,000 in 1 month. This ain't just small pocket change. It's multiple six figures in a month that we lost. And you see the negative on the P&L, and it reached $350,000. And, you know, to me, it was a complete failure. There was no going forward. We might as well shut the door tomorrow because you can't run a business going backwards.
And you were so, I remember exactly where I was when that call came, because you said, Stacy, what do you think about me hiring another CEO to replace me? Because you were having self-doubt. You were thinking, I'm not good enough, and I'm not smart enough, and I'm not big enough to handle this weight. And I said, you're exactly who you need to be. God chose you. He's anointed you. He's put you in this place. Now we've just got to train you and level you up to be everything God created you to be for this season. And that's when, you know, you let us kick you in the rear a little bit. That's what a good coach does. They don't let you play small. They say, get up, pull up your big girl panties. We're going to go to work. But it doesn't mean that we're going to let you stay where you are. I love you right where you're at, but I love you too much to leave you there. And a good coach is going to see into the future. And I just think back, what if you wouldn't have said to your brother and your dad and the people around you, what if you wouldn't have gotten that coach? What if we wouldn't have come into y'all's life? We don't know if Zach and if all the people that work for Zeke and Chris and Megan and Lindsay and all the people that have come through this company, some of them are going to be here in 5 years, some of them are going to move on, but you wouldn't have had the chance to touch their life as a king of a kingdom that God has his hand upon.
And yeah, it was, and that was in 2023. I mean, it was a very dark year for the company, since, you know, it felt like me and Kyler, you know, we would work 6 days a week from sun up to sundown, and it felt like nothing that we did worked. And I just remember
and you were grumpy, and y'all didn't want to show up to your calls. And I also remember that it was like money. We got to have more money. And what switched was when you guys said chasing money isn't the answer. We got to chase the kingdom. When y'all begin to chase what matters most to God, when you make it matter most to you, all of a sudden he begins to give you the favor of the kingdom.
And it was that verse that said, seek ye first the kingdom, that made the difference. Because me and Kyler, you know, we were just tired. And this was, and I think a lot of people go through this at 40, at 50, and they just get tired of doing the same thing over and over and over again, which is the definition of insanity. And I remember telling Kyler, I said, that's what we're doing. I said, we're mentally insane, Kyler. We have to change. And, you know, we had to change, you know, I believe we went through so many levels that, you know, and our team has felt the effects of the company changing over and over and over again. And I just keep going back to, you know, a coach playing a game. And if the plays are not working, you change it mid-game. You don't wait till the end of the game. And I feel like that's what we do so well, is like, okay, Kyler, this is clearly not working. I'm not going to wait 6 months to fix it. Let's just go ahead and fix it now. And so it might be uncomfortable to go ahead and address that, fix it, and, you know, implement that new strategy. And, you know, last year we had to implement the whole new aspect. How we did marketing, how we did sales, how we do production, how we do delivery, how our customer support needs to look. We had to rebuild everything. Even how our employees got paid. that's what I think most at my level go through is, their employees, they don't want to change because it's human.
That's the key is you have to, that's why culture is so important. One of the most important things about this culture that you have at Saddlebrook is you have a culture of personal growth and development, of optimization, that you guys are developing that, what was good yesterday, what got us here is not going to be enough to get us there because you're constantly going through 10x leaps, growth leaps that are going to take you, what you guys, I think about last year, you guys were in beast mode. Everything was beast mode, beast mode, beast mode. But God was trying to get you into his best mode for your life. And that requires a change of team, a change of trajectory. It requires you to change the people that are around you, the voices that you're listening to. But when you make that leap and you get into a year like this year where you guys last month had the biggest month you've ever had, when you grow through that, you realize, wow,
By 600%.
By 600%, right? But imagine one day we're going to look back at this podcast and we're going, do you remember how small we were then?
Yeah.
Look at us now. Look at how many families have been impacted. Look at how many babies were born while the guys worked here and the ladies worked here. Look how we've expanded our off-sites and how we do all the monthly celebrations of our teams. You're going to look back and you're not going to celebrate the houses. You're not going to celebrate the drills and the structure and the tactics and the strategies. You're going to celebrate the people.
By making one small decision to get out of your comfort zone, go do something that you don't know, building a shed, go invest the money in coaching, into personal development. We could talk for hours and upon hours, and we're coming to an end where we gotta end this. I want one more thing. What's one thing, as far as Fueled by Fire, G Mama, what's one thing that you can leave to the Young CEO podcast,
Larry,
to our listeners? I got one thing for you, Larry, then. What's one thing that you can leave our listeners that are listening in, no matter if they're starting out in their entrepreneur journey, if they're a CEO, if they're a business owner, what's one thing that you can speak to them if you had, like, say, a minute?
Check your ego at the door.
Yeah. That's good. That's me.
That was the first thing
That's the first thing I asked.
That's the first thing I
Kyler.
said to you because that's what you asked me. But a practical, what you can do, and I'm on a lot of podcasts, so I get this question asked a lot. What's one final word that you would give, one final recommendation? Every day I wake up, and as blessed as we are, I never miss this. Every day I wake up, I say good morning, before my eyes open up, before my feet hit the floor. I don't want to do my day.
Yeah.
I want to do a day for the kingdom. And so I wake up, don't open my eyes. I say, good morning, Holy Spirit. What would you have of me today? And I listen. And if he says clear the day, I want you to go spend some time with that lady that you met the other day. Or if he puts a face before me, tells me to call him. Or if he just tells me to, have a great day, let your light shine. I want to do what he's called me to do, not what I feel like doing. And that way I always know, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything else will be added unto you.
One more question for you, Larry. Am I your favorite? Is Colton your favorite?
Y'all are equally my favorites.
That's what.
I think it's probably me because I showed up the longest.
It is what it is. Maybe you're my favorite tonight. Maybe your favorite tomorrow. Yeah. If this helped you in any way, please share it with a community, if a business owner, an entrepreneur. If this resonated with somebody or somebody that you know, share our podcast, subscribe to our podcast, and we're going to be coming out with more episodes just like Larry and Stacy's, their story and their whole journey of what it takes to step out and to not play small and to go. It's either one day or day one.
God, I'm still counting my blessings.